Qualcomm just made a move that proves the AI chip wars aren't about speed anymore, they're about software. They bought Modular, an AI software startup, in a deal that signals where the real battle is happening. Here's the thing, any company can build a fast processor. What's actually hard is getting people to use it. Right now, AI engineers build for Nvidia, not always because Nvidia's chips are fastest, sometimes they are not, but because Nvidia built CUDA. CUDA is like owning the English language, while your competitors are trying to teach everyone Morse code. Once Nvidia had it, everyone built around it. Developers just assume Nvidia hardware. They train models assuming CUDA will be there. Qualcomm's been shipping some genuinely powerful chips, but power sitting on a shelf sells nothing. The fortress Nvidia built isn't made of transistors, it's made of software and developer habits. So what do you do when you realize you're losing a software war? You buy the smartest people who understand software stacks. That's Modular. Modular isn't some no-name startup. The team understands compiler technology and AI frameworks at a level most companies can only dream about. They built systems that let models run across different hardware efficiently. Now they're applying that expertise to Qualcomm's chips. This isn't just a pickup play. This is Qualcomm saying we're not fighting Nvidia just on silicon anymore. We are coming after the moat itself. And here's where it gets interesting. To understand why Qualcomm paid for Modular, you need to know what Modular actually built. The company started with a simple insight: AI models are getting trapped. Researchers would build something in PyTorch for one hardware setup, then they'd want to run it on something different, maybe an edge device, maybe a different GPU, and suddenly nothing works. They'd have to rewrite huge chunks of code. Modular saw the gap. They built Mojo, a programming language designed specifically to make AI code portable. Mojo lets engineers write once and run across different hardware. No rewriting, no vendor lock-in. It's like writing a book in a universal language instead of French, so it works in every country without translation. That sounds simple. It's actually revolutionary. Right now, if you're an AI researcher, you're locked into whoever provides the ecosystem. You build in PyTorch for Nvidia, and switching costs are brutal. Modular's vision was to break that lock, make hardware truly interchangeable at the software level. For Qualcomm, this is perfect. They don't need to beat Nvidia at chip design, they already have competitive processors. They need people using those processors. With Modular's software tooling, suddenly Qualcomm chips become a real option for developers. A company can write code once in Mojo, then run it on Qualcomm hardware just as easily as Nvidia. The data center is where this war actually matters. That's where the real money is in AI. Companies are building massive server farms, spending tens of billions of dollars running AI workloads. Every decision about which chip goes into those racks is worth millions. Right now, Nvidia owns almost all of that. Their AI chips, the H100, the H200, are everywhere because they are fast, yes, but mainly because developers already know them. The ecosystem around Nvidia is so thick that CIOs and architects almost reflexively spec Nvidia into new deployments. It's just what you do. But here's what's changing. People are getting hungry for alternatives. Qualcomm's data center push with ARM-based chips is real. AMD's been making progress too. Intel's desperate to stay relevant. The problem is that all of them are pushing inferior software ecosystems. They've got the hardware, but the software glue that makes that hardware useful just doesn't exist. This is where Modular comes in. With Modular's tooling baked into Qualcomm's strategy, suddenly those chips become deployable at scale. You can write a model in a modular framework and run it across Qualcomm's data center silicon without rewriting. That changes the calculation for a CIO deciding where to build their next cluster. The deal signals that Qualcomm is serious about the long game. They're not just shipping one generation of fast chips and hoping engineers choose them. Let's get specific. Imagine you're a company building a recommendation engine, the thing that tells users what to watch or buy. Your model is massive. It needs to run fast and cheaply because you're running inference millions of times a day. Right now, you'd probably build it on Nvidia hardware because that's the safe choice. Everyone else does. With Modular's software stacks integrated into Qualcomm's offering, you'd have a real alternative. You could profile your model, see that it'd actually run faster or cheaper on Qualcomm's processors, and make a genuinely better decision instead of just defaulting to Nvidia. That's one example. Here's another: edge inference. Imagine deploying AI to thousands of edge devices, robots, drones, mobile units at remote sites. These devices can't be connected to cloud data centers every second. They need local inference. Nvidia's made some gains here, but Qualcomm's always been stronger because ARM-based chips are more power efficient. With Modular's software layer, developers can write models once and deploy across edge devices without re-architecting. Suddenly, Qualcomm becomes the edge inference leader, not just in theory, but in practice. Or think about research labs. Academics often have diverse hardware. They might use Nvidia for one project, AMD for another, Qualcomm for something specialized. Right now, they rewrite models constantly. With Modular's layer, they'd write once, run anywhere. These aren't hypothetical. Companies are already asking for this. But here's where it gets complicated. Intel tried something similar. They bought a series of AI software startups over the past years, Nirvana, Habana, trying to build a competitive software stack. But Intel bungled it. They either didn't integrate the technology, or they came too late, or they just didn't have the talent to make it work. The result? Intel's still a footnote in AI acceleration. AMD's been smarter. They've been more patient. Building ROCm, their answer to CUDA, and actually listening to what developers need. It's slower going than Nvidia's dominance, but it's steady. AMD is making real inroads in some data center segments because they've committed to making their software actually work. Qualcomm's move is somewhere in between. It's bolder than what AMD did, full acquisition of expertise rather than building in-house. But it's also riskier. Acquisitions are hard. You buy a talented team, and half the time they leave when the acquisition closes. The culture clash, the bureaucracy, it kills momentum. Nvidia, meanwhile, hasn't stood still. They're expanding CUDA, making it more flexible, more portable. They're getting nervous, which is exactly what this deal signals. If they weren't worried, they wouldn't be pouring resources into staying ahead. The real test for Qualcomm is execution. Can they integrate Modular's genius into their product roadmap? Can they ship tools that actually make their chips easy to use? Can they move faster than Nvidia's counter moves? Nobody knows yet. But the fact that Qualcomm's making this move means they finally understand the real battle. This deal has implications way beyond Qualcomm and Modular. It's a signal that the era of single-vendor dominance in AI hardware might be ending. For the last 7 years, Nvidia has basically owned enterprise AI. They've made an astonishing amount of money, and they've used that money to stay ahead. But that dominance was always fragile in one way. It depended on software being hard to change. Developers got locked into CUDA because switching costs were brutal. No one had a better ecosystem. But software moves faster than hardware. A new programming framework can change the game in months. A new software layer that makes hardware interchangeable could collapse Nvidia's moat in ways that faster chips never could. If Qualcomm, AMD, and Intel all get serious about open software stacks, suddenly buying Nvidia becomes optional instead of mandatory. Your hardware choices become about actual performance and cost, not about whether the software ecosystem exists. For buyers, companies deploying AI at scale, this is fantastic. Real competition means better prices, better support, better innovation. It means you're not held hostage by one vendor's decisions. For Nvidia, it's a wake-up call. They'll respond aggressively. They'll make CUDA even more portable. They'll court developers harder. They'll maybe even acquire their own software startups. For everyone else, startups building AI tools, researchers working on models, data scientists in enterprises, it means more choices. Less lock-in, real optionality. That's the real story this deal is telling us. The question is whether Qualcomm can execute fast enough to matter. If you're working in AI or data science, here's what you should actually watch for going forward. First, tools. Over the next 6 to 12 months, watch whether Modular's software actually gets integrated into Qualcomm's offerings. Are they shipping production-ready frameworks? Are they easy to use? Or do they stay half-baked? Easy integration wins, slow rollout loses. Second, adoption. Watch what companies start using Qualcomm chips in production. Are the early adopters serious players or small experimental shops? If a major cloud provider or large enterprise commits to Qualcomm data center chips, that's a signal Modular's software layer actually works at scale. Third, developer sentiment. Join the communities, watch the forums, see whether software engineers are actually happy using Qualcomm through Modular's stack, or whether they hit friction and drift back to Nvidia. That's your real litmus test. Fourth, pricing. Qualcomm has a chance to undercut Nvidia on price if their stack actually works. Watch for that aggressively. If they are still charging Nvidia rates for comparable performance, something went wrong. Fifth, Nvidia's response. Qualcomm moving should force Nvidia to accelerate their own software improvements. Watch for announcements. Watch for new developer tools. Watch for price drops. Nvidia scared is Nvidia innovating fastest. If all of these things go well, you might actually have real alternatives in AI hardware within 2 years, but it all depends on execution. Good intentions don't matter, results do, and that's what makes this genuinely important to watch. Here's what you should take away. Qualcomm just proved that in AI, the chip wars are actually software wars. Speed is worthless without an ecosystem. You can build the world's fastest processor, and it's just expensive silicon if nobody knows how to use it. Modular was the missing piece. They understand compiler technology and frameworks. They understand how to make hardware portable. Qualcomm's betting billions that this team can do for them what Nvidia's internal teams did for Nvidia, build the software layer that makes their chips indispensable. This might work, or it might be another expensive acquisition that doesn't move the needle. Qualcomm's track record with acquisitions is mixed, but the signal is unmistakable. This is the real way you compete with Nvidia now. For the AI industry, this is positive. More vendors with serious software stacks means more choices. Less lock-in, real competition, and competition accelerates innovation. For Nvidia, it means they can't be complacent. Their software moat is now under direct attack from someone with resources and talent. For AI builders and companies deploying these systems, it means the next year is going to be interesting. You're going to have options. Real, competitive options. Qualcomm just threw down a gauntlet. The question now is whether they can follow through. The chip wars aren't over. They're just shifting to a new battleground. If you're working in AI, follow this story. The tools you use next year might not run on Nvidia, and that choice might actually be the right one.